Now for something completely different. The 13th Shakespeare Schools Festival, South Africa, begins this week, or this coming week, as it were. For the next 3 weeks, schools will be staging the adaptations of Shakespeare plays. The theme this year is Unplugged and Illuminated in 2023. Now, one of the schools taking part is the Pioneer School for the Visually Impaired, and they've done so for many years. I'm joined now by their very enthusiastic and energetic drama teacher, Derek Daly, who joins us virtually from Cape Town. Derek, thank you so much for your time this year. You know, reading up about this festival, I was struck by the enormity of it. It is a massive production that is put together, obviously over a week, but it takes months and months of preparation before that. Can you give us an idea of the kind of preparation that goes into the performances that will be seen at the festival?
Well, just from our school, obviously you start with auditions, and that's a whole process in itself. We have a fairly small amount of learners, but just to give you an idea, for Romeo and Juliet, every single girl in the high school auditioned for the part. So
Sure.
I know different schools work with different speeds. For us, we tend to work in a very concentrated 3-month period. But for others, it's months and months in preparation. There are workshops, which the festival runs, comes to participating schools, and there's even directors' workshops, which means that by the time the work actually gets onto the stage, it's work of a very high quality.
Now, obviously, you are working with a very, very special bunch of talented kids at the Pioneer School for the Visually Impaired. You're their drama teacher. Give us a sense of how long you've been working with the school, and how has working with kids from a school for visually impaired changed how you talk about drama, how you bring across the skills that's used in the dramatic arts. Talk to us a little bit about that journey.
Well, I've been at the school for 15 years, and we started off just by doing a show every year. But about 10 years ago, I realized that there's some excellent festivals like the Shakespeare Schools Festival, which provide a wonderful platform for learners to showcase their talent to a wider audience. So this was the ideal vehicle for our school to get on board with. And really the interaction with mainstream schools, they get a chance to experience work done by other schools, and of course the interaction. So from our point of view, from our school, our preparation is very different. I got the fright of my life the first year that we participated in the festival, which was in 2018, which is at the Baxter Theatre. Now, this stage is absolutely enormous, and the cast that year consisted of 6 learners, 13-year-old grade 7s taking on Macbeth. And when I saw that stage, I got the fright of my life, because 5 of the cast are actually blind learners, and then there's 1 partially sighted learner. So we were stuck with a massive problem on how on earth were we going to let these learners navigate their way across the stage. So I asked for assistance from our orientation and mobility department, and they came up with this ingenious system of laying out mats on the stage from the various entrances. So in a typical production, you'll have maybe 3 entrances from the back of the theatre. So they laid out mats which took the actors from the back of the theatre right into the acting area right in front. So a very important ingredient of the system that they developed was the placing of these plastic mats, which they're based on actually a system that's used internationally for navigating for blind people. And the plastic mats, basically, as an actor, tells you it's time to stop, and that there's another passage going to the left, and that there's another passage going to the right. You would then be able to move into whichever area you need to move in, and indeed leave the stage on the passage you came in on, or indeed leave on another passage. But just to give you some idea of how intricate the choreography is, and you ask, how has it changed the way I look at theatre? Well, in this specific show, for instance, from last year, there's a plastic mat which this actress had to reach and collect a handkerchief. If she did not collect that handkerchief, the rest of the play would fall apart, because
of course, it's a key moment in Romeo and Juliet, isn't it?
Well, in Othello this time, because the villain actually ends up taking this handkerchief and then using it as evidence that Othello has now been unfaithful. So in the previous scene, the team there of Othello and his wife they had to drop in an embrace moment, drop this handkerchief on this mat, and then literally leave it at exactly the same place every time. If they didn't do that, we found that the actress wouldn't be able to collect the handkerchief at all if it was left in a sort of a neighboring mat, for instance. So
Goodness.
it happened time and time again after rehearsal. I can remember her asking me, pleading with me, "Sir, can't we please just leave that part out?" And I told her, "No, unfortunately we can't, because the rest of the play depends on it, and we depend on you." And needless to say, she came through with flying colors, and it was such a powerful moment for me to see her come through that obstacle and emerge on the other side with renewed confidence. But I think that's what the magic thing is about this festival. It provides learners from schools like ours with an opportunity to face some serious obstacles, because let's face it, being on stage is a scary place, and can be very lonely place. But this has really opened up the doors, and it's almost become limitless now what blind learners can achieve. I mean, they've got confidence, they can stay in character, and they can reach an audience. And even the partially sighted learners as well, they tend to sense the audience, even though many of them can't even see the audience. And a lot of actors rely on that contact to bring the message home in a show. So they tend to feel what's happening in the audience in order for them to reach the audience.
Gosh, it's absolutely astounding. I mean, you're talking about the technical and physical things that you need to put in place to make it possible for them to navigate a theatre space, but you end off there by speaking how they use sort of all of their other softer senses, if I could put it that way, to bring across a storyline, to bring across an emotion, and not being able to depend on sight to see whether that emotion and that storyline has indeed landed. Now, we all know that the theatre space is a very physical space as well, but when you're dealing with the work of Shakespeare, you know, if you've got the right people teaching it to you at the start, you would have an understanding that it's not just visual, that the text is where the magic is. I'm interested in how you approach that with kids from your school specifically, to help them understand that the beauty of Shakespeare is not just in the visual or the physical, but it's also in those finer details and those finer emotions that are brought across by the beautiful text.
Indeed, Marcel. We always try and make the text as close to home as possible. And let me just start off by saying that. So we tend to move off the page and understand what the lines mean. Then as the process evolves, we try and go back to the original line as much as possible. And I think bringing it close to home makes it more fun to the kids. They can relate to the story. And that's once again the magic of this festival. Shakespeare isn't something that's a 400-year-old dusty page. It's very much alive, and it's new life is breathed into it year after year in this festival. Just to give you some examples, in Romeo and Juliet, the cast and I decided to relocate Romeo and Juliet from Verona, Italy, to Cape Town, South Africa. And
amazing.
We did away with letters, and we started using cell phones and sending text messages. And last year we took another risk. We flipped things completely upside down with Othello, of course, a part made famous by John Carney at the Market Theatre. Yes. And we went from Othello the Moor to Othello, wait for it, the Boer. And it still worked. And it's taking chances like that, and when you discover the life of the text, of course, the themes are very much any South African or any person in any country would be able to relate to: ambition, revenge, jealousy, but also compassion, generosity, and hope. So that's why in this festival also the schools are able to do it not only in English, but I've seen many schools deliver it in another language and with very unique properties. So yes, bringing it close to home, it's very much a team effort with me and the cast. We try and bring it as close to home as possible. And then, wow, what a feeling when those words start dancing around, and when they actually choose the original line, then you know we're getting somewhere, because now we're being true to Shakespeare.
Absolutely. What amazing work that you and your team continue to do. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That's Derek Daly. He's the drama teacher at the Pioneer School for the Visually Impaired down in the Cape, speaking about the Shakespeare Schools Festival, the 13th rendition of this festival taking place at the Star Theatre in District 6. You would have known that formerly as the Fugard Theatre, and that's taking place, let me get the dates, from the 8th of May till the 27th of May. 38 confirmed groups taking part, focusing, of course, on the Bard's work over 17 days, and tickets are available on Quicket. Oh, I hope my English teachers from high school weren't watching, because I confused the storylines of my Standard 6 Shakespeare work, Romeo and Juliet, with my matric Shakespeare work, Othello. And yes, I said Standard 6. That's how old I am.